Hey, Sorority Chat fans. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I am really excited about this conversation. I had Cassie Little from Her Sorority Journey join me today. And Cassie is the mastermind behind Her Sorority Journey, which is a platform dedicated to empowering sorority women and creating an amazing community of sisters. She shared her journey on how she got to this point, spills some sorority secrets, and gives us tips and tricks to make the most out of our sorority experience. So whether you're a current active member, an alum just looking to reconnect, or if you're curious about sorority life in general, there is something in this episode for you. Cassie has stories that will make you laugh, insights that will inspire you, and advice that will leave you ready to take on the world. I know that's how I felt after we talked. So tune in. Don't miss out on this. Please subscribe, rate us, leave us a review, and share it with friends. See you soon. Hey, Cassie, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great, Liz. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a fun little exchange that we get to do this summer.
It is. And it's funny because every time we talk, we always get to chit-chatting so much at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, we gotta start recording and start making the conversation.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny. I find with women in this space, there's just so much to naturally talk about. And then it's like, wait, we should just hit record and start getting some of that because other people could benefit from those conversations too.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So jumping right in, I want you to tell listeners about Her Sorority Journey and what you do through that platform.
Thanks for asking. Yeah, Her Sorority Journey has been my passion project now for 4.5 years. I think 4.5 is being a little generous. I think it'll be 4.5 in September. But I started this business, the foundation for it, the mind perspective behind it actually started before the pandemic, but we ended up building out curriculum and creating a vision for an educational platform for sorority women to grow in any season of their membership experience a few months before the country shut down back in 2020. But the week, of course, as any good thing, the week we went to launch, the country did in fact shut down. All the women who are housed in your facilities that you've helped design and decorate were sent home, either to their parents' houses, their off-campus apartments, or whatever that may be to navigate virtual learning. And in doing so, there was still a desire for sisterhood and connectedness. And I had been navigating long distance friendship for a couple years at that point, being a couple years post grad. And I was like, all right, let's get after it. We're going to maybe shift some of the resources that we had already developed, but just kind of pivot with the experience as it was pivoting itself. And so that's where we were born. It was back in March of 2020, just really rolling out podcast episodes, blogs, social media content that was all relevant and engaging to the modern sorority woman in that moment, kind of rejecting the concept of we've always done it this way as we all had to, and kind of blazing a new trail. And it's been a really cool journey over the last couple years. My background was actually in speaking and consulting in fraternity and sorority life, but starting this business, it actually wasn't my vision to be a full-time speaker as I now am. My vision was really to create a platform where a lot of resources were accessible through courses and leadership training and other things of that nature. But the market told me what it needed, and the in-person programming was in such high demand as we started coming out of the COVID fog. And I think one thing that's been so beautiful about being able to work with sorority members on campus is really giving them the tools to create their best restored, reimagined version of sorority with the best of the tradition that we have upheld through generations and generations of sorority women with the new needs in mind. So still rejecting that concept of we've always done it this way, but finding a healthy balance of how to celebrate the good that our founders and the women who've come before us, the foundation that they have laid, while also meeting today's college woman's needs. So that's the work I do. Most of Her Sorority Journey services take place on college campuses or at national organization conventions or conferences. We still do work virtually, but in addition to the services that we offer for keynote programs and workshops, we still love to serve the everyday sorority member through podcasts, blogs, and social media content.
Yeah, I really appreciate the we don't have to always do it this way just because it's how it's always been done. It's hard to get out of that mindset. And usually
Yeah.
it takes a program or a speaker, someone like you to kind of get you thinking that way. But
Yeah.
it makes you very stale and stagnant and becomes problematic doing things that way.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you and I even talked about this when you were on the Your Sorority Journey podcast about the ways housing has had to evolve over the last, not just since 2020, but over the last decade to really meet the new needs of sorority members. And I think to your point, like that's how we stay relevant and engaging. But also we create a legacy by pulling from the best of what's been given to us from the women who fought so hard for this experience to exist.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then that brings to mind a conversation that you and I had previously. We really connect because we both are into mentoring college women and we have opportunities through our business. And so talk to me a little bit about what that looks like for you, like how you mentor students. I know you've got some internships. And just, you have like a really great perspective on like setting boundaries in the workplace. And I want to hear more about that.
Gosh, well, I'm 28 now. And so when I started my internship program, I was 25. And I would think I was pretty sober-minded to the idea that I wasn't going to have the best insight on the sorority experience to meet the modern sorority members' needs forever. And it was really important to me to like lock arms with those who were in the trenches, like in the experience and knew what they needed. And so the internship program was actually born out of a belief that Her Sorority Journey would not last if the collegiate's perspective was not continually being poured into it.
Oh.
And I also believe that my 10 years of my career, and at this point today, then it was a smaller number, I guess 7 years at that point. The 7 years of my career at that point, is that how math works? Is it 6 or 7? Something like that. Could support a new grad in some capacity or an undergraduate member who is dreaming about their future career. I think I learned a lot of lessons the hard way in my internships, other like leadership positions and like post grad work, specifically in the first couple jobs I had out of college about unhealthy boundaries in the workplace, unhealthy relationships in the workplace. And it's always been a like sub agenda of Her Sorority Journey to empower women that there is no corporate ladder worth climbing at the expense of your values, your morals, your physical and mental well-being. And I will die on that hill. And so it was really important to me that when we started the internship program to provide professional development programming, kind of in exchange, if you will, for the think tanks that they would host and the ways that we would reimagine how to provide sorority resources to Her Sorority Journey's audience. We would also do monthly coaching in a couple different areas, a couple different programs that I've developed around professional development, specifically for sorority members. And so that's how the program started 4 summers ago. It's kind of sweet because now one of the interns who was on that team is now my executive assistant. And the Her Sorority Journey, yeah, it's cool. The Her Sorority Journey Sisterhood is pretty cool because in an effort to really bring women into the work that we're doing, they have built relationships without me. Like they meet up on the road as leadership consultants, or they ask one another, like fellow chapter presidents, how they're navigating a certain issue, which was really common, like in that 2021, 2022 era, navigating new kinds of recruitment with masks and virtual rounds and this, that, and the other. And so it's been really cool to see them stay connected and continue to like advocate for the work that Her Sorority Journey is doing out of a place of how much they actually gave to it. And so my heart for Her Sorority Journey is that it would really elevate women to feel like experts in something. Because I think when we feel like an expert in something, we can be like more humble in learning new skill sets and ways of applying different skills, honestly. Like if it's graphic design, if it's organization and administration, if it's like resource development or copywriting, whatever those things may be. Because when we have the ability to apply ourselves in an area that we're really seasoned at, that we have a lot of experience in, we have a little bit more confidence going into industries that we don't have as much experience in, but we have a ton of experience in that skill set. So
Mhm.
that's my heart behind an internship, and it's evolved quite a bit. So this summer we actually have only 2 interns. Our team in the past has been anywhere between 6 and 12.
Oh,
And this year we've evolved it to have 2 paid positions. So a much higher level of like deliverables on their end. Same level of actually, and we've removed the professional development piece, but in addition, like still value that like sisterhood element that the internship has provided in the past. And so we've created this cohort that has been really fun. So it's like a mentorship cohort that we have 6 women on this summer that our interns also participate in. That still is that professional development coaching and think tanks that we used to incorporate in the internship experience. But we found dividing it works better to create more clarity for our interns and cohort members and maximize the time that we have with them over the summer.
yeah, that makes sense. I think it's great that you're letting it evolve and, as you were seeing what worked and what didn't work, then you're changing it. And I
Yeah.
think it sounds like you're really giving these women a lot of opportunity to learn and to develop personally, and then obviously take it back to their chapter, but it would stick with them post college.
Yeah, and not to talk about them too much, but they are the coolest. Like I could brag about them all day. Like my business coach and I talk about them and they are like going to bless a future company so greatly. Whoever gets them for their specific niches and experience levels, they're so innovative. They think so creatively and they take such initiative to help plan things and go before and have a lot of great feedback too. They're helping me grow as a leader and business owner. Also, it's cool. It's vulnerable. I don't know if you feel this way, but as an entrepreneur, when you have created this thing that exists that didn't exist before. Like it exists
Mhm.
because of you. And then you bring other people into it. It can be kind of vulnerable, right? Because
Yeah.
other people like see behind the scenes of why you do what you do and how you do what you do. And it can be kind of scary because you're like, I actually don't know if I do this the best way, but I do it the way that I know how to do it and has
Yeah.
worked for my company.
Yep.
And it's so sweet to hear the affirmation of like, I learned so much from you because you do things a certain way. And also hey, why did you do it that way? I never would have thought to do it like that. And it
Uh-huh.
slows you down a little bit, but it makes you think a little bit more critically. And I think it's helped me.
Yes, I fully agree. I always say that I learn just as much, if not more, from the interns that come through my doors than they learn from me.
Yeah.
So it's definitely mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
It's really enjoyable and it's just nice to have like their light and life around and just seeing everything through their eyes, kind of like what you're saying.
Well, gosh, and now like the number of like letters of rec I've written or reference
Yeah.
calls I've taken or even just like mock interviews I've had with them. I think the first couple, that first year, it's like, wait, am I old enough? Am I qualified enough to like I feel like I was just asking for these and now I'm the one like I am your like university certified internship sponsor. Like how can that be? You know?
Yep.
It's humbling. It's cool. It's like a weird I've made it moment, you know?
But we're not old enough to be in
I,
these roles, so I don't know how it's happening.
I don't know how that happened. Yeah, it's funny.
Oh, that is funny. Well, so one of the topics that you speak on a lot is recruitment. And obviously, there's a
Yeah.
million kind of subcategories within recruitment. But one of the things that I think is so interesting is you talk about how on both sides of the table that we miss the point of recruitment. And so I would love for you to talk more about that because I think it's a really valuable point.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't actually care about recruitment logistics very much. Especially the like older I get and the farther away I get from my collegiate sorority experience, the less I care about uh length of rounds, themes of rounds, outfits that we're wearing during rounds. even just like the programming, the videos, whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't care. And that's not to say that it doesn't matter. Please don't hear me. I just have very little interest in like speaking on those topics because I think one, there are other people who are more equipped to speak on that. And my heart is on the foundation we are recruiting from. I
Hmm.
think we missed the point because as a potential new member, we are not giving enough credit to how amazing we are as individuals. We are not in tune with ourselves enough to being able to like find the outfit that makes us feel really confident, to be able to make preferences based on like our worth not being determined by who asks us back tomorrow. Same thing goes with chapters, right? Like we are looking for potential new members to make us look a certain way or feel desirable in a certain way on campus. We are wanting to compete with other chapters pretty most often when we're like making some of these videos or thinking through the chants or the songs that we will have. I'm not saying those things don't matter. I just think recruitment can be really distracting. And we need a more firm foundation to pick all of the logistics to make all those big decisions from. And that just needs to be like a sincere care and love for ourselves as a potential new member and for one another and the sisterhoods that we exist in. And so a lot of the work that we do, we call it redefining what it means to be recruitment ready. And I think that means having a really good pulse on what sisterhood means. The sisterhood you're looking for as a potential new member, or the benefits of sisterhood, the richness of relationships that you have found within your sorority. That's what we recruit from. That's what we are recruited to. And I definitely don't want to belabor this point about not caring about the details because they are so fun. And on TikTok, we talk about them a lot because
Yep.
there is like a special like allure to the sorority experience because of those pieces. But I do think that we are missing the point by starting there, by
Mhm.
starting with shopping for our outfits, by starting with making sure we have all of these chants memorized or practiced or perfected. Even like walking the space or for Panhellenic ordering buses, all that stuff matters. The t-shirts have to be ordered, the budget has to be set. But if we don't care about each other, like if we don't have like rich relationships between one another, what are we welcoming potential new members into? You
Mhm.
know, like I just don't believe that we can cultivate the culture that we are proud to welcome potential new members into the week before recruitment. It has to start much earlier before we make the lookbook, before we set recruitment dates.
Mhm.
And so that's my heart behind recruitment. And I think that's why it matters so much. Not to say that the logistics don't, they definitely matter, but we have to proactively prioritize the right things
Mhm.
to build a firm foundation for the logistics to be able to like stand firmly on top of.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's all the other things that you called the details could also be considered the clutter. If you don't have that core message right and fully
Yeah,
understand why you're doing the details, then yes, it's going to fall apart. And even my role with the house is
sure.
not the end all be all, right? It's the chapter,
Yeah,
it's the women, it's the group and the camaraderie. And so I always say like my job is to create a backdrop. And like yes, there is a competitive component between the chapters on campus. And so the house is important, but it's not
yeah,
the most important. And a lot of times I think what happens is the message gets muddled because of the outside community that doesn't understand Greek. They see the outfits on TikTok, they see the houses and
yeah.
in the magazines. And so then that's easy to draw the attention to that. And then we as members can get distracted. So I really appreciate you saying that, kind of that core message is what we have to hang on to.
Yeah, and I just think like in your field of work, like the members make a house a home.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
who cares if you have the cutest pillows or like the most roomy like sleeping porch or whatever your accommodations are. Like
Yeah.
I actually don't want potential new members to want to join my chapter because of my house. You
Yeah, it's not the
know?
right
Like
reason. Yeah.
I want you to like love me. I want you to love like this relationship that we have with one another and like see yourself uh receiving in that and also contributing to that in the future. And yeah, if you love the house, that's a total bonus. Um, and I think too, it's funny, I was talking to a recruitment volunteer at my organization's convention. I got to do a recruitment virtual keynote for them this summer, and she was just thanking me for the program. And she said, I think your message is ahead of its time. And I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm like, you think this is ahead of its time? She's like, I think like the competition piece is still like really pressing
Yeah.
for a lot of these communities, like
Mhm.
from the way the house is presented, from the promo shirts that we buy, XYZ thing, like, and I was like, man, I don't think of what we're talking about being unachievable now, but I think it was a good thing for me to reconsider of like, how do we talk about this in a way that like also supports and addresses like the underlying need or desire to belong? Because I think that's ultimately what it is. And we talk about that in the program too. Like we spend so much time working up the energy and like putting in the work to win approval, show up perfect and feel put together. And like I just think it's important that we ask who we're doing that for. But
Mhm.
until we address that like underlying need, we can't combat competition. We can't combat superficial priorities in recruitment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'll go so as far as to say, I think that's an ongoing battle for women. And so the earlier you can get a handle on
Yeah.
that and understanding you and making sure that you're not doing all of these things for outside approval, the better off
Mm,
you're going to be. But, it takes us years. And sometimes you like learn the lesson and then you kind of fall away from it and then you have to learn it again in a different way.
yeah.
It's something that exists.
Well, that I agree. I think, and we talked about that in the keynote actually. I think for women especially, this is not a sorority issue. I think like as women in general, we are all looking for approval because we want the validation that we belong in the spaces that we exist.
Mhm.
And what's challenging is to your earlier point about like society sees us on social media or they see us on campus or in town and they associate that behavior with sorority behavior because one, it's like very easily identified, right? Like a lot of other like societal comparison is a lot more like subtle or
Yeah.
personal. This is
Mhm.
very collective, which is
Mhm.
challenging. The only other example I could see is like maybe like pageantry or like
Mhm.
even like women's sports, I think might fall into this as well. Or like dance or cheer, like those kinds of like sisterhoods might cultivate like a similar collective experience of this. But it's hard because I think there are some things that exist in sorority culture that are blamed on sorority that are much more a product of societal
Yeah.
challenges or comparison or college culture
Mhm.
that it's a lot to blame on these groups of like ambitious women, but
Mhm.
it's just easy to identify, I think.
Yeah, no, you are exactly right. So going back to something that you said a minute ago about the like message being ahead of its time
Oh
and
yeah.
some of the things that that you feel like the competition kind of getting in the way of remembering like the core mission with Greek life. Do you have an opinion on, some universities have really changed up some of the parameters about recruitment because they're trying to do things like not have the students focus on what the house looks like and not
Yeah.
focus on what someone is wearing and so everyone's in like a uniform t-shirt. Do you have an opinion on how that is working? Like is it achieving what we think it is, or do we need to keep doing work on that?
No, like the concept of no frills or like partial frills is like so fascinating to me
Uh-huh.
because it's like so the definition or the way it manifests itself on different campuses is in such a
Hmm.
this there's such a discrepancy between how it's like manifests itself on different campuses. Like no frills for one campus might be recruiting out of like an empty classroom, and no frills on another campus might be uh still matching outfits and like a door chant in
Hmm.
a house that has like no additional decoration beyond like what's like traditionally there or whatever. And I
Uh-huh.
think what's so funny about that is obviously there's like consistency campus to campus, but the disparity or there's consistency within a campus, chapter to chapter within a campus, but the disparity across the country is still contributing to the like misplaced expectations that potential new members have, right? I think we talked about this a lot last summer with the Bama Rush documentary that
Yep.
actually talked like way less. I'm sure you watched it. Talked way less about
It was about alopecia in the end, but yeah.
right, way less about the sorority experience than some other things.
Yeah.
And I think just like I think there was a lot of great insight on like our target markets, like stressors and
Yes.
frustrations, like just like what it looks like to be 18 and going through recruitment. You know what I mean? Like I think that was really insightful, but less about the it was a little less expose than everyone was expecting. But I
Yeah.
think that like concept of like Bama Rush versus like recruitment at the University of Oregon sometimes means that potentially members come in with different expectations than what organizations have to offer. And I
Mhm.
think what's important, regardless of the number of frills, I guess to answer your question, like directly is yes, I think it's doing a great job in helping recruiters and potential new members focus on the right things, spend less money, even just like carry less like mental load of like thinking through how to be creative in these different ways. But I also think that like sometimes they're trying to get outside of the box and think even more creatively about how to accomplish some of these things within the means of no frills, which is sometimes really actually great marketing for our communities, and other times it's like missing the point. So I guess I don't want to speak for it like across the board because it can look a lot of different places, but I think bottom line is if the frills are promoting like belonging and connectedness with the sisterhood that you are a part of, or
Mhm.
creates the opportunity for a potential member to see themselves in it, I think it's doing a good job, right? Photos of members at actual events. I think the videos that have been created based on footage of actual events throughout the year, like create an opportunity for a potential new member to see herself there or not, right? I think when we are like producing these experiences that aren't actually felt, I think that's not accomplishing the goal of recruitment, right? That's not creating an opportunity that either the recruiter aligns with or the potential new member can realistically see herself in.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers your question. I think there are some quote unquote frills that
Mhm.
create like excitement and enthusiasm with the organization. And then there are some that are really pushing us away from what we actually have to offer or creating uh, unmeetable expectations of membership. So I think it's a both and, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I agree with you. It's so varied across the board because there's some campuses where I will go and they will say, we have to get all of our furniture out of the house for recruit.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't have anything hanging on the wall. So it's kind of that like environmental distraction instead of focusing on the women that you're talking to. And then, or like I mentioned, everyone is in the same t-shirt because then that
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of like wearing uniforms to school. It's supposed to like level
Hmm.
the playing field. And then in other campuses, they'll say, well, you can spend this is the cap for how much you can spend on your decorations. And so they're trying to make it equitable that way. So I think it's interesting to hear all the different ways that they make it no frills or they try to make it equal
Yeah.
and what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I appreciate your insight on that.
I also think like the frills in the room are just part of it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the frills in the space are making a big impact on a potential new member's preferences at the end of the round. I think a lot of it's starting much earlier on social media. Um, and so I think that's something to consider too. Like I know I am really impressed with NPC's positive panhellenic conduct policies that they've put out about like how to engage with potential new members on social media beforehand. I
Yes.
think it's a
Uh-huh.
great marketing strategy as long as we're like pushing parity in the community. I mean, Panhellenic loves that word. We love parity. But I think as long as we're pushing a intent or a hope that that woman pursues Panhellenic membership, not your own organization's membership,
Yes. Yep.
that's accomplishing something really helpful. But honestly, I think more of the frills I'm noticing are just like on TikTok, right? The amount of time a chapter is taking to rehearse dances and like record dances to post.
Yep.
And I think too the dollars that go into like Spirit Week or pre-recruitment, whatever, like Polish Week, whatever people call it anymore.
Yes.
It's just also varied campus to campus.
Yep.
I think those are some dollars that are on en route to making this experience a little less accessible for some of our women, more so than recruitment itself. That's my take, and I don't think any of those things are bad. Like, I think they're really fun and exciting, but I do think it's always worth considering, like, how are we creating an experience that we connect to and create opportunity for our future members to see themselves in? I think that's always the question we got to ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder of what to come back to.
Yeah.
Stay a little more centered with it. So, well, Cassie, do you have like a dream event or dream group that's just like top of your list that you would love to speak to? I'm just curious.
Oh, that I'd love to speak to. Maybe. I'm not that I'd probably share on the podcast.
Okay, that's fair.
But a dream event that I love to host for Her Sorority Journey. We do a summit every year, and this was actually our first year of not doing one. It's been called Uncharted the last couple of years. And so since 2021, it was like my goal to host like a virtual conference. And so we called it like Uncharted, a sorority summit. And we like hosted different speakers and like created a 3-day event that was for our first year anniversary, a 3-day event to really give sorority members tools to enhance their experience. The next year, we did a bunch of Her Sorority Journey signature programs. One of them was live. The other 3 were virtual. And then last year, we had 4 speakers in one day and all pre-recorded. And this year, we actually realized that the virtual summit experience is like just not what students are looking for anymore. And so this is our first year not doing a summit. And one of my longtime dreams was to host a grant for young female entrepreneurs, because I attribute a lot of where I am today to the people who came around me when I got started.
Absolutely. Same here.
And so it was my heart to be that for someone. And so we got to read all these applications and grant a grant to a young female entrepreneur. And that was really exciting. But I think in the future, I'd love to take Uncharted to either be a sorority members leader, like emerging leaders conference for young emerging leaders of sorority, not so much like established leaders, like those who are like ready to like grow in their organization, maybe established leaders too. We could do multiple tracks, or entrepreneurs conference. So anyways, that's a long time. And in person, I'd love to host like a sorority or like female entrepreneurs conference in person one day. But that's probably like way down the line. But those are just things I dream about. Yeah,
but that's awesome. I mean, those are the things that keep you going and that always you know, keep it fresh for you. So where can people connect with you and find out more information about what you guys have going on?
Her Sorority Journey, basically everywhere. It's hersororityjourney.com, Her Sorority Journey on Instagram and TikTok. In our link tree, if you are looking to bring a speaker for a sisterhood retreat or recruitment event, there is a Calendly link where you can connect with me to talk more about your sisterhood, more about your vision for where you want things to grow and how we could potentially support you. But if you're just a general member listening, follow us on social media just for like general support in your sorority journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's always great to see you and to talk with you. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thanks so much, Liz.